now that we have our crochet hook ready to learn with, the first thing to know is how you're going to hold your crochet hook. So there are two main ways to hold a crochet hook. The first is the pen. So you would pick up your crochet hook and hold it exactly like you would a pen or a pencil. So this may differ for you, but the way I hold a pen or a pencil is essentially between my pointer, middle, and thumb. And if you choose this grip, you will essentially just be working like a pen and you would be moving in that fashion. So the next way and the way I hold it is the knife grip. So essentially you're just going to pick up the crochet hook and hold it like a knife. And this varies for everyone. I personally have tried switching between knife and pen grip and it feels like I'm learning all over again. So whichever one is most comfortable, I recommend sticking with that one and learning the main stitches. And if it's feeling good, I would continue with that hold. I also find it important to note that if you're starting out and you have an ergonomical handle, that gives you a really good idea of where on the hook you want to hold. You don't want to be holding on this metal part because that is actually where your stitches are going to be worked. They slide up and down this part, which will make more sense when we get into it. So this gives you a good indicator that, I'm going to hold around here. And the same goes for the Furls crochet hook. You aren't really going to be holding too far up here. I hold anywhere around here. I might rest my finger on the sloping part of the metal, but you have a good indication of where to hold. Now, if you have just a straight metal one, you won't have this ergonomical handle, but you can just measure about 1.5 inches that you're going to place your finger or hold like a pen down from. So now is the moment we've all been waiting for. We are going to start to learn some basic crochet techniques. I have my crochet hook and I have a skein of yarn. I want to point out that this is the Lion brand yarn 24/7 cotton. It's one of my favorite summer yarns to work with. I work with it constantly throughout the warmer weather. It's 100% mercerized cotton. This is the colorway red, but I will be using blue. I believe it's navy or blue. I'll get the exact color in the description below, but it's available almost everywhere yarn is sold. So let's go ahead and get started. So I say this in a couple of my pattern videos, but I find it important to repeat here. There are multiple different ways to start a crochet project, but as a beginner, the most prominent way you're going to begin a crochet project is with the slip knot. So to create the slip knot, and for my right-handed crocheters out there, this is how you would do it, and if you're left-handed, it would be opposite. I take the tail end of the yarn in my right hand and hold it. Next, I will take the yarn while I'm still holding it in my right hand and flip it to create a 4. And then the next thing you're going to do, while still holding the yarn, extremely important, pinch through the 4 created with my left hand, flip it over onto the string, and then pull the tail through. We have just created a slip knot. I'll show it again a little quicker so it looks more fluid, but now you would just put it on your hook and tighten to the appropriate tension. So now I'll go ahead and show it a little quicker. So I actually am going to switch over to the red. It's a little easier to see on camera and will be easier for the tutorial. So I'm going to do a quick slip knot. And if my slow version of the slip knot wasn't slow enough, you can always use the YouTube function that allows you to slow down the video. That will help, but just one more time, I'm going to take the tail in my right hand, flip the yarn over, go through the loop, and then pull the tail through to create a slip knot. I'm going to insert my hook into the slip knot and tighten to my hook. So now we have a slip knot on our hook and we are ready to begin. But we need to think about how we hold our hook again. So if you're just beginning, you can either choose the pen or the knife. I'm going to pick up like the knife. So this is how we are going to do our dominant hand. So for me, that's my right hand. And in my left hand, it's not just gonna not do anything. We have tension to control. So tension is a concept that keeps your work looking even, looking machine made, if you will. It keeps your rows even and makes sure that everything is looking very nice. So in my left hand, I am going to hold the string and additionally the work that's on my hook. So I'll show you how I grab that. I first will put the working string in between my pointer and my middle finger, and then I will secure it with my ring and my pinky finger. So there are different ways you can do that. I know some people that'll wrap the working yarn around their pinky. I find that a little difficult, so I'm not going to be doing that. But so I will secure it between my pointer and my ring, pointer and my middle, secure it with my other two fingers, and then with my middle and my thumb, I will pinch on to this slip knot. So just for the ease of explanation, I'll show you skip ahead a little bit to explain something. So I'm holding my slip knot in the beginning, but as I work, I'm going to be holding closer to the crochet hook. And now, if you're working on a big piece, you may not need to hold your work because it can be lying flat and you might just be able to keep it still with the weight of the piece. But while you're beginning, it's extremely important to secure the work. So let's not get ahead of ourselves here. So I have a slip knot on my hook. I have the knife grip. I'm going to secure the working yarn and pinch the bottom of the work. So now, at this point, we are ready to start crocheting. So as I was saying, there are different ways to start a crochet project, but the most common is using a slip knot and chain stitches. And to work a chain stitch, we are going to maneuver the hook under the yarn, turn our hook down to pull it through the existing hook or existing loop on our hook to create a braid-like figure. So I'll show that to you again. And the way I like to explain it to people is I start with my hook facing up, wrap under, turn it down, and pull through. A lot of time people will have difficulty with this first step because they'll go like this and not turn it down and wonder why it's not working through the loop. But think about the tool. It's a hook. So you really want to utilize its main function. So again, I am going to push away from me, wrap the yarn, turn my hook down, and then pull through. I am going to push the hook away, go under this working yarn, turn my hook down, and pull it through. Another thing people run into is looping too many times, getting stuck here. So just while you're chaining, you want to make sure that you're only grabbing one yarn over and pulling it through. So I am going to work 4 more chains and work with a base chain of 10. So here I have a base chain of 10, and here I'll also explain, I guess, the anatomy, if you will, of a chain stitch. So this is the top where you see the 2 strands are, and then if I turn it over, you'll see that there's a bump. So there's the bump, if you can see it. Might be a little difficult to see. But essentially, whenever you're working into a foundation chain, you can either work into bumps only or through these 2 loops only, and it's really up to your preference. I prefer to go into bumps only as it leaves a cleaner edge, in my opinion. So now we are going to begin our very first stitch, the single crochet. This is the first, or maybe the second stitch I learned, doesn't really matter, but there are a couple ways you can start. You can either chain 1 to begin the row, and then insert into the second chain from the hook, insert from you away, yarn over like we did for the chain stitch, pull it through. You now have 2 loops on your hook. You're going to yarn over like we did for the chain stitch and pull through both. And you just created your first single crochet. So another way you can start the single crochet is chain 2. So chain 2, and then the chain 2 counts as a single crochet. So you're going to skip the first 3 and do the same thing in the next stitch. I prefer the chain one, create a single crochet, so that's what I'm going to stick with. So I have to chain 2 to get back to 10 chains. Okay, so I'll show you the single crochet again. So you're going to chain 1, and that's your turning chain. I'm then going to skip the first chain and work my hook away from me, go under the yarn, pull it back through. You have 2 chains on your, or 2 loops on your hook, yarn over and pull through both. So I'm just going to keep doing that slowly. And as you can see, I'm pinching the work as I work into it. Of course, you don't want to block the next chain you're working into, but in order to keep your tension good, you want to make sure you're keeping it secure. So I'm going to finish this row. Don't worry, I'm going to explain it slowly again. But I want to show you how you would start the second row. So this is what one row of single crochet looks like. To begin the next row, you're going to chain 1, like we did for the foundation chain. That is your turning chain. So you're going to go ahead and turn your work. And now, since you've turned it, you're again just working right to left. So you're going to, instead of inserting into a bump, now you're working into the stitches. So after the first foundation row, you're going to begin to work straight into stitches. So you can see here I have 1 stitch, and then here's the next one. And essentially, you just want to try to find the 2 bars from the previous row and go under them. So I'll try to show you from a top view. I'm going to go into these 2 bars, yarn over and pull through. So again, find the next 2 bars, go through them, yarn over, pull through. I have 2 stitches on my hook, yarn over and pull through both. And once you master that movement, you can now work any project in single crochet. So I'm gonna go ahead and work up a little swatch to see how you can see what it'll turn out to be like. So I'll meet you back here in a couple rows. So I forgot to mention that when you're finishing a row, you want to make sure that you don't miss the last stitch. So if I pull my work, I can see that this top row is a little shorter than the first row. And so that's usually a good indication. an even better indication is counting that I need to work one more stitch. So the last two bars can be tricky to find, but you just want to make sure you go under those two and work a single crochet. So I did a swatch of about 5 rows. It can be hard to count at first. You might even just want to keep tally while you're working, but the way I count is I have 1 here, and then the second row is the opposite of the first row. So if you need to like flip your work back and forth to see what that looks like, that'll help you too. And so I did 5 rows. And so single crochet is a good stitch if you don't want any holes in your work, or if you need something a little sturdier. So that is it for this tutorial. Definitely practice. A single crochet is a really good stitch to start with. And as you master those, you can move on to the other stitch tutorials on my channel. Please like and subscribe, and if you have any questions, just comment down below. Thanks, guys.